station floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower. Thousands of ships came and went every day. Millions of beings from hundreds of different worlds walked through its corridors. They came to trade, to talk, to hide, and to survive. The station was old. Some said it had been there for 10,000 years. Nobody really knew who built it first. The market level was the loudest place on the station. Voices shouted in languages that no translator could fully understand. Strange smells filled the air. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Lights of every color flashed from shop signs. Creatures of all shapes and sizes pushed past each other in the narrow pathways between stalls. Park walked slowly through this chaos. She was 34 years old with black hair tied back in a simple knot. Her eyes were tired but kind. She worked on the human diplomatic ship called Horizon's Edge. Her job was to study alien life. But today was not a work day. Today was special. Holding her hand was her daughter, Park. Was 8 years old. She had her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She wore a translator earpiece that was too big for her small ear. It kept slipping and she kept pushing it back. Her other hand held a small stuffed rabbit named. The rabbit was old and worn, had carried it everywhere since she was 2. "Mama, look," pointed at a stall where a 4-armed creature was juggling balls of colored light. The lights left trails in the air like paint on invisible paper. Smiled. This was why she had brought here. The girl had spent her whole life on ships and stations, but always in the human sections. Always behind safety doors and security checkpoints. Wanted her daughter to see the real galaxy. The beautiful, strange, wonderful galaxy that had fallen in love with years ago. The Galactic Council had promised that station was safe. Neutral ground, they called it. No weapons, no violence, all species welcome, had believed them. She would never believe them again. They stopped at a stall selling plants that glowed in the dark. The seller was a small creature covered in blue fur. It spoke in clicks and whistles that's translator turned into words. Beautiful flowers, yes, yes, from the deep caves of Moth Prime, they sing when the moons rise. Leaned closer to look. The plants were indeed beautiful. Their petals shifted colors slowly, like dreams made solid. For just a moment, she let go of his hand. That moment changed everything. 3 figures had been watching the humans since they entered the market. They stood near a food stall, pretending to eat, but their eyes never left the woman and the child. They were tall warriors with skin and bones that grew outside their bodies like armor. Ridges of sharp bone ran down their skulls and along their arms. Their eyes were small and yellow, like drops of poison. The Dominion was one of the oldest powers in the galaxy. They had ruled their part of space for thousands of years. They believed strength was everything. The weak existed to serve the strong. That was their law. That was their faith. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only been traveling between stars for 100 years. They were nothing. Soft creatures with no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. The fact that humans had spread so quickly, had built so many colonies, had earned a seat on the Galactic Council, this made them angry. It was an insult to the natural order. The leader of the 3 warriors was named. He was young and eager to prove himself. He looked at the human child standing alone and saw an opportunity. "Watch this," he said to his companions. "I will show you how weak these humans truly are." He moved through the crowd. His size made others step aside. Nobody wanted trouble with a warrior. When he reached, he looked down at her with a cruel smile. Looked up, her translator crackled. "Hello," she said, because her mother had taught her to be polite. Grabbed her arm. His clawed hand wrapped completely around her thin limb. He squeezed. Screamed. The sound cut through the noise of the market like a blade. Spun around. She saw her daughter being dragged away by a monster 3 times her size. 2 more monsters moved to block her path. Screamed. She tried to push past the other, but they were like walls of stone and bone. One of them laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. "Stay back, human," he said. "Your offspring belongs to us now. Perhaps we will return her, perhaps not. It depends on how much she amuses us." Pulled into a side corridor, the crowd watched but did nothing. Nobody wanted trouble with the Dominion. The station security officers looked the other way. Politics, they would say later. Complicated politics. In the corridor away from watching eyes threw against the wall. She hit hard and fell to the ground. Her rabbit tumbled from her hand. Tears ran down her face, but she did not cry out again. She was too scared to make a sound. Stood over her. "Such a small thing," he said. "Is this what humans think is precious? This soft, weak creature?" He raised his clawed hand. Back in the market, stopped trying to push past the guards. Her fear was turning into something else now. Something older. Something that lived in the bones of every mother since the beginning of time. She reached into her bag and felt the plasma cutter she used for work. It was a tool, not a weapon, but in that moment did not care about the difference. She was coming for her daughter. And somewhere across the stars, a father felt his blood run cold. 7,000 light-years away, the battle cruiser Silent Judgment moved through the empty darkness between stars. It was a massive ship, built for war but currently serving peace. 2,000 crew members lived and worked inside its metal walls. They were soldiers, engineers, doctors, and pilots. They were the iron fist that humanity kept hidden behind a velvet glove. Park stood in the training room on Deck 7. He was 40 years old with short black hair and a face that showed no emotion. His body was covered in scars that told stories he would never share. He wore simple clothes, no rank badges, no medals, nothing to show what he was. He was hitting a training dummy with his bare hands. Each strike was precise. Each movement was controlled. He had been doing this for 2 hours. He was not tired. He was never tired. Was a Reaper. That word meant nothing to most people. It was not in any official record. It did not exist in any database that normal people could access. But in the dark corners of Earth's military, the word carried weight. It carried fear. Reapers were humanity's answer to a hostile universe. When humans first reached the stars, they found that the galaxy was not friendly. Other species saw them as weak, easy targets, easy prey. So humanity created something new. They took their best soldiers and made them better, faster, stronger, harder to kill. They trained them in ways that would break normal men. They taught them secrets about death that no one should know. Had become a Reaper 20 years ago. Since then, he had done things that could never be spoken about. He had ended wars before they started. He had walked into impossible situations and walked out alone, leaving only silence behind him. His official job was military advisor. His real job was to make sure that no one ever thought humans were weak again. But none of that mattered to him anymore. What mattered was the photograph he kept in his pocket. A woman with kind eyes, a little girl holding a stuffed rabbit, his family, his reason for breathing. His communicator buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. He kept hitting the dummy. Then it made a different sound. A sound he had never heard before. The emergency family code. Stopped, his hand moved to the communicator so fast it seemed to disappear and reappear. He read the message. For a long moment he stood completely still. His face did not change. His breathing did not change. But something inside him shifted. Something old and terrible woke up. The message was from station security. It was short and official. It said that there had been an incident involving his wife and daughter. It said that his daughter had been taken by warriors. It said that station security could not intervene due to political considerations. Political considerations. Read those words 3 times. Then he crushed the communicator in his hand. The metal bent like paper. He walked out of the training room. He did not run. Running was for people who were scared, was not scared. He was something worse. The corridors of the Silent Judgment were long and crew members moved aside when they saw him coming. They did not know why. They just knew that something about the man in made them want to be somewhere else. Reached the hangar bay. Rows of ships sat waiting, fighters, shuttles, transport craft. He walked to a small black shuttle at the far end. It had no markings, no registration number. Officially, it did not exist. A voice spoke behind him. He turned. Admiral stood there. She was 50 years old, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She was one of the few people who knew what really was. She was also one of the few people he respected. "I received the same report you did," she said. "I know what you're planning to do." Said nothing. "The Dominion has 200 warships in this sector," the Admiral continued. "If you do what I think you're going to do, it could start a war. Then there will be a war." His voice was flat, empty, like a door closing on a tomb. Admiral looked at him for a long moment. She had known this man for 15 years. She had seen him do impossible things. She had seen him kill without hesitation and show mercy without weakness. She knew that nothing she said would stop him. Nothing anyone said would stop him. "How long do you need?" she asked. 10 minutes. She nodded slowly. "I will delay any response from Fleet Command for 1 hour. After that, you're on your own." "I'm always on my own." Climbed into the shuttle. The door closed behind him. Systems powered up. The hangar bay doors opened to show the stars beyond. Admiral watched the shuttle rise from the deck. Its engines glowed blue. Then it was gone, jumping to faster-than-light speed, becoming a streak of light that vanished in an instant. She stood alone in the hangar bay. Her hands were shaking. She had sent men to die before. She had ordered attacks that killed thousands. But watching Park fly toward station filled her with something she had not felt in years. It was not fear for him. It was fear for everyone else. "God help them," she whispered to the empty hangar, "because he won't." In the silence of FTL travel, sat in the pilot's chair and looked at the photograph of his family. His daughter's smile, his wife's gentle eyes, the old stuffed rabbit named. He put the photograph away. He closed his eyes, and he began to remember everything he had tried so hard to forget. Every technique, every weapon, every way to cause pain. Someone had touched his daughter. Someone was going to die. Found them in the maintenance corridor. It was a dark place, far from the bright lights of the market. Pipes ran along the walls. Water dripped somewhere in the shadows. The air smelled like machine oil and fear. Had pressed against the wall. His clawed hand was raised, ready to strike. The child was crying softly, her small body shaking. A dark bruise was already forming on her cheek where she had been hit. Did not slow down, she did not think, she just moved. The plasma cutter came out of her bag. It was a small tool meant for cutting metal samples. The blade was only 10 centimeters long. Against a warrior, it was like a toothpick against a bear. She did not care. Drove the blade into his shoulder, right into the gap between his bone plates. The tool was designed to cut through starship hulls. It went through flesh like it was nothing. Screamed, a horrible sound like breaking glass, and released. Grabbed her daughter and pushed her behind her. "Run," she shouted. "Find the human section, find safety." But could not run. Her legs would not work. She could only stand there frozen, watching her mother face 3 monsters. The other 2 moved forward. They were not laughing anymore. One of them pulled back, checking his wound. The other advanced on with murder in his yellow eyes. "You will die slowly for that," he said. Held up the plasma cutter. Her hand was shaking, but her voice was steady. "Come and try." That was fast, much faster than she expected. He crossed the distance between them in 2 steps. His arm swept down in a blow that could have broken stone. Ducked. She was not a fighter, but she was a mother. That made her something else, something that would not die easily. She came up inside his guard and sprayed chemical preservative into his eyes. It was meant for keeping samples fresh. It burned like acid. The roared and grabbed at his face, blind. The third warrior came at her now. Was back on his feet too, blood running down his arm, rage burning in his eyes. 2 against 1. She had no chance. Fought anyway. She ducked a blow. She took another on her arm. She felt bones break but did not scream. She hit back with everything she had, the plasma cutter, her fists, her elbows, her knees. She broke her hand against a bone ridge and kept fighting. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead. She was losing. She knew she was losing. But every second she fought was a second her daughter might escape. Then the lights flickered. All three stopped. They looked up at the ceiling. The lights flickered again, once, twice. Then they went out completely. For a moment, there was only darkness. Then a new light appeared. A small red dot glowing in the black. It was attached to a man who had not been there a second ago. Park stepped out of the shadows. He looked at his wife, bleeding and broken but still standing. He looked at his daughter, pressed against the wall, clutching her stuffed rabbit. He looked at the 3 warriors who had done this. Whispered. "Close your eyes," little one said. His voice was gentle, kind. The voice of a father reading a bedtime story. "Keep them closed until I tell you to open them." Closed her eyes. What happened next lasted less than 2 minutes, but the security cameras that recorded it would be classified at the highest level. The footage would give nightmares to intelligence officers who had seen real wars. Did not use a gun. Guns were too loud, too quick, too merciful. He used his hands. He used a knife that appeared in his grip like magic. He used 70 years of human knowledge about how to hurt things. The first, the one had blinded, died before he knew what was happening. Came at him from the side, moving faster than a human should be able to move. The knife found the gap in his neck armor. The warrior was dead before his body hit the ground. The second one tried to fight. He threw a punch that could have crushed metal, was not there. He was behind the warrior now, his knife cutting tendons, crippling legs. The fell. He tried to crawl away, did not let him. Ran. He ran as fast as his wounded body could carry him. He ran toward the main corridors, toward lights and people and safety. He was a warrior of the Dominion. He had killed dozens of enemies in battle. He had never felt fear like this. He did not get far. A hand grabbed him from behind. He was spun around. He saw the human's face, calm, empty like a mask made of stone. He tried to speak, to beg, to offer money, power, anything. Did not listen. When it was over, was still alive. Barely. He would never walk again. He would never hold a weapon again. He would spend the rest of his life remembering this moment and wishing he had died. Walked back to his family. His hands were covered in blood. His clothes were stained dark, but his eyes were soft now, human again. He knelt in front of his daughter. "You can open your eyes." She opened them. She saw her father, covered in blood. She did not look at what lay behind him. She just reached out and hugged him as tightly as her small arms could manage. "Came," she whispered. "Will always come," he said. Leaned against the wall, her broken arm hung at her side. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. "Took you long enough," she said. Looked at her. For just a moment the mask slipped. She saw the fear he had felt, the love that had driven him across 7,000 light years in a matter of hours. "I came as fast as I could," he said. He picked up with one arm. He put his other arm around. Together, they walked out of the maintenance corridor, leaving the darkness and the blood behind. But this was not over. Not even close. The news traveled fast. In a galaxy connected by instant communication, nothing stayed secret for long. Within hours, everyone knew what had happened on station. A human had killed 2 warriors and crippled a third. The videos spread across 1,000,000 worlds. Some species watched in horror. Some watched in fascination. Some watched and began to wonder if they had been wrong about humans. Warlord received the news while eating his morning meal. He was the supreme commander of the Dominion's Third Fleet. He was 200 years old, covered in battle scars, and had never lost a war. His body was massive, 3 meters tall, with bone armor so thick that most weapons could not pierce it. His eyes were the color of old blood. When he saw the video, he threw his food across the room. "One human," he growled. "One single human did this." His advisors stood in silence. They knew better than to speak when was angry. "This is an insult," the warlord continued. "An insult to the Dominion, an insult to our warriors, an insult to me." He stood up, his chair crashing to the floor behind him. "I will have this human's head. I will mount it on my wall, and I will make his family watch as I take it." He ordered his flagship to move toward the Galactic Council's headquarters. The Dominion's Wrath was the largest warship in his fleet, a mountain of metal bristling with weapons. He brought 200 other ships with him. It was not an invasion force, not officially. It was an honor guard. The Council knew what it really was, a threat. The Galactic Council met on Nexus Prime, a world that had been chosen because it belonged to no one. The council chamber was a vast circular room, with seats rising up in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from 300 species sat in those seats. They came in all shapes and sizes, some humanoid, some made of living crystal or flowing gas. They spoke 100 languages. They had 1,000 different ideas about justice and law and power. But they all fell silent when Warlord entered the chamber. He walked down the central aisle like he owned the place. His guards marched behind him, their weapons visible despite the chamber's rules against arms. He stopped in the center of the room and looked up at the gathered representatives. "I demand justice," he said. His voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. "A human attacked my warriors without cause. He killed 2 and left 1 broken. This is murder. This is war. I demand the human be surrendered to me for punishment." The chamber buzzed with whispered conversations. Many species were afraid of They had seen what happened to worlds that challenged the Dominion. They wanted to give what he wanted. Then Ambassador stood up. She was the human representative to the council. She was 60 years old, with hair and calm eyes. She had spent her entire life in diplomacy. She had talked her way out of wars, negotiated treaties that saved millions of lives, and faced threats from species that could have destroyed Earth with a single fleet. She was not afraid of "Your warriors," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber, "assaulted an 8-year-old girl." Laughed, the sound echoed off the walls. "A child, you speak of a child. My warriors were simply curious. They wanted to examine this small human. They would have returned her, eventually." "They beat her," Ambassador continued. "They dragged her into a dark corridor and hurt her. She is 8 years old. She carries a stuffed rabbit. She was afraid and alone and crying for her mother, and your warriors laughed while they hurt her." The chamber fell completely silent. Stepped closer to the human ambassador. He towered over her. "Your laws do not apply to the Dominion. Your morality does not concern us. The strong take what they want. The weak suffer. This is the natural order. Your species has forgotten this. Perhaps you need to be reminded." Ambassador did not step back. She did not look away. "The father of that child would like to respond to your demands personally." Blinked the father. "You bring the murderer here." "He is here. He has been here since you arrived." The main doors of the chamber opened. Park walked in. He was alone. He wore a simple uniform with no markings, no visible weapons, no armor. He looked small compared to the warriors around him. He looked like nothing, like no one. Stared at him, then he laughed again. This is the creature who killed my warriors, this small, soft thing." Walked to the center of the chamber. He stopped 5 meters from the warlord. His face showed no emotion. His hands hung loose at his sides. "Your warriors hurt my daughter," he said. His voice was quiet, but somehow everyone in the chamber heard him perfectly. "And I will hurt you," replied. He reached for his ceremonial blade, a massive curved sword that had killed hundreds of enemies. "I will." Moved. The Galactic Council watched what happened next. They would remember it for the rest of their lives. They would tell their children about it. They would have nightmares about it. In 4 seconds, Park crossed the distance between them. He took the sword from his hand, simply took it like taking a toy from a child. He broke both of the Warlord's arms with 2 precise strikes, fell to his knees, screaming in pain and shock. Then took the Warlord's head. One clean cut. The blade that had used to kill so many enemies now ended his own life. The head fell to the floor. It rolled across the smooth stone and stopped at Ambassador's feet. The chamber was completely silent. 300 species stared at the human standing over the body of the most feared warlord in the galaxy. No one moved. No one breathed. Turned to face the council. Blood dripped from the sword in his hand. "My daughter is 8 years old," he said. "She likes drawing pictures of stars. She loves her stuffed rabbit. She laughs when I make silly faces. 3 days ago, she was dragged into a dark place by monsters who thought she was nothing, who thought she was weak, who thought they could hurt her and face no consequences." He dropped the sword. It clattered on the floor. "This is humanity's response. We did not bring a fleet. We did not declare war. We sent one father." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species that had never feared humans before. "Remember this day. Remember what happens when you touch our children." He turned and walked out. No one tried to stop him. The warlord's body lay cooling on the floor. His head stared up at the ceiling with empty eyes, and 300 species began to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They had thought humans were prey. They were wrong. The Dominion fell apart in 3 days. Warlord had ruled through fear. He had crushed anyone who challenged him. He had built an empire on broken bodies and burned worlds. But empires built on fear cannot survive without the one who makes others afraid. When news of his death spread, everything changed. His generals turned on each other. Each one wanted to be the next warlord. Each one thought they were strong enough to take the throne. Civil war exploded across space. Fleets that had conquered hundreds of worlds now fought each other. Cities burned. Stations fell. The Galactic Council watched it happen. They did nothing to stop it. Many of them were quietly glad. The Dominion had threatened them all for too long. But the Council had other concerns now, the humans. 2 weeks after the incident, they called an emergency meeting. The topic was simple: what should be done about humanity? Some species called for punishment. They said that had committed murder in the council chamber itself. They said that this could not be allowed. If humans faced no consequences, what would stop them from doing it again? Other species called for expulsion. They said that humans were too dangerous to remain in the council. They were unpredictable, violent. They had hidden their true nature behind diplomacy and trade for 30 years. A few species said nothing at all. They just watched and listened and thought about what they had seen. Ambassador stood before the council once more. She was calm as always. Her hair was neatly arranged. Her clothes were simple and professional. She looked like someone's grandmother. She looked harmless. But everyone in the chamber remembered what had happened the last time a human stood in this room. "I understand your concerns," she said. "You are afraid. That is understandable. You have just learned something about humanity that you did not know before. Let me help you understand it better." She paused, looking around the chamber. Every eye was on her. For 30 years, humanity has been part of this council. In that time, we have never started a war. We have honored every treaty. We have traded fairly with every species that treated us fairly. We have asked for nothing but the same respect we give to others. She took a step forward. "In that time you have called us weak, soft, prey. You have cheated us in trade. You have tested our borders with small attacks. You have looked at our children and seen nothing but targets. We knew this. We allowed it. because we hoped that patience and kindness would earn us a place in this community." Her voice grew harder now, not angry, just cold, clear. "But you need to understand something about humans. We are not patient because we are weak. We are patient because we are strong. We do not fight because we choose not to fight, not because we cannot." She looked directly at the species who had called for punishment. "You ask what will stop us from doing this again? Nothing. If your people hurt our children, we will come for you, not with fleets, not with armies. We will send fathers, mothers, brothers and sisters. We will send people who have nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. You cannot stop them. You cannot negotiate with them. You can only watch them come and hope that you are not their target." The chamber was silent. "But here is the good news," Ambassador continued, her voice softening. "We do not want to be your enemies. We never did. We want to be your partners, your friends. We want to trade with you and learn from you and build something wonderful together. All we ask, all we have ever asked, is that you treat us with basic respect, that you do not hurt our people, that you do not touch our children." She smiled. It was a grandmother's smile, warm and kind. "Is that really so much to ask?" No one voted for punishment. No one voted for expulsion. The matter was quietly dropped and never mentioned again. In the months that followed, human children became the most protected beings in the galaxy. It was not written in any law. There was no official treaty. But every species understood the new rule. You do not touch human children, ever, for any reason. Some species went even further. They began to protect all children, regardless of species, because they had seen what happened when innocents were harmed, because they had learned what parents were capable of, because Park had shown them something they had forgotten. The strong do not prey on the weak, the strong protect them. The Warlord's head was preserved in stasis and mounted in the council chamber. It hung there as a reminder, a warning. Below it, a plaque was installed. The words were written in 400 languages so that every species could read them. They were someone's child. Park returned to his family. He was not charged with any crime. No species demanded his arrest. He went back to being a military advisor. He went back to being a husband and a father. He played games with his daughter. He held his wife while she healed. He tried to forget the blood on his hands. Recovered slowly. She had nightmares for a while. She was afraid of crowds and strangers. But children are stronger than adults know. They heal in ways that grown-ups cannot. One day, about a year after the incident, asked her father a question. She said, "Why do the aliens look at me different now?" Thought about how to answer. He could lie. He could tell her a simple story, but had taught him that children deserve truth even when truth is hard. "Because they learned something important," he said. "What did they learn?" He picked her up and held her close. She was getting bigger now, too big to carry for much longer, but he would carry her as long as he could. "They learned that you are precious," he said. "They learned that you are loved, and they learned that there is nothing in this universe more dangerous than someone who loves their child." Thought about this, then she hugged her father and smiled. "I love you too." Above them, the stars shone bright and cold. Somewhere out there, species who had once thought humans were prey now told their children different stories. Stories about the soft creatures who were not soft at all. Stories about the danger of hurting innocents. Stories about a father who crossed the galaxy in hours and killed a warlord with his own sword. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not through war, not through conquest, through love. And no one would ever forget it.